currently painting my space orcs, my epic space orcs, and I've been doing a Snakebite clan. Started it some time ago and then just never went back to finishing it, where I got stuck on doing the 15 stands of standard orcs that need to be done. So 15 stands times 5 is 75 very small orc miniatures to paint. There's I think 3 sculpts, if you can call them that, in the set currently. The older orc sculpt from the 2nd edition box set that I've got. There's then a more up-to-date one where the orc is holding his gun diagonally, and then there's the orc holding the heavy weapon. And those are all fine, they look good, but they don't have any particular clan definition about them in terms of the way they look. They're kind of more generic. And I'm looking to do a specifically a Snakebite mob. And in doing so, I had a quick look on the internet and found this WordPress blog by the Otto von Bismarck. I had typed in epic space orc Snakebite, and this is what came up in amongst the images. And the person who runs this blog is obviously a talented sculptor and has created a few of his own epic scale miniatures that he can use in his army. And he's got examples of his painted miniatures, but as I scrolled through this, you get to pictures of what he had done with a special Snakebite orc that he had sculpted to what looks like using green stuff to do that. And it's absolutely brilliant. I love it. I love the design of it. I love the proportions. And it really does strike me as being a Snakebite. I mean, I guess the mohawk up top helps with that, but in general it's an ideal design. He's mentioned here that it's influenced by Ali Morrison's large head Marauder Space Orcs, which, just to check those out on the Stuff of Legends website, I believe these would be the ones that he is referring to there in terms of the proportions, etc. Certainly kind of old style orc design for those. Someone in the comments on the blog had asked if these would be available commercially, and I mean, I'd certainly be interested in buying some if they were, but there was no direct response to that. And this is a blog from 2019, or a blog post from 2019. The actual blog itself is still active. Another place to find some examples is the Vanguard Miniatures website. They've got a shop where you can buy miniatures. In their 6mm section, they've got something called skinners. And here they've got what I would describe as certainly a range of space orcs, maybe given a different name just to be legally distinct, I guess. But yeah, nice 6mm space orc type miniatures if you're looking for some more variety. And they appear to be cast in soft metal. And there you see the 3D renders. What I like is you can actually understand the construction of these in the 3D software they would have used. You know, the bicep here of this orc is pretty much a sphere object, likely just drawn on its own and positioned. In fact, many of these parts look to be just primitive objects placed together to form an overall shape. Not sure how likely they would print, but I presume they've printed okay because they were able to make casts from them. But it's a nice range nonetheless. And then they've got the ones that they describe as tribal skinners. which would be more the kind of snakebite themed versions. You can tell by the hair and the axes. So that's a good option if you're looking for something ready-made. They've got vehicles and all sorts of stuff. Then there's a creator called Wakeless Rex, who's got an absolute ton of things that can be 3D printed, including orcs or space orcs. And these look to be pretty highly detailed models, almost 28mm in terms of the level of detail. You'd wonder if they would print equally well at a larger scale. They look to have a lot of detail to them. Yeah, I think for me I'd be looking to make something more in keeping with the original epic miniatures, those small 6mm designs. These are very high quality, these models here, far more detailed. So there's a few options online if you're looking for something ready-made. So what I thought I'd try and do is digitally sculpt something using these examples as a bit of inspiration for creating my own Snakebite specific space orcs. So I'm in Autodesk 3ds Max at the moment. That's where I would tend to do my modelling work. I've created a little example base here, which would equate to being 6mm across and 1mm deep. And for a bit of a guide on height, this circle is 6mm in radius. So your 6mm miniature should roughly fit on this base, and maybe the top of the head would finish where this circle is at its peak. Probably start by making a head first. And I would say that I'm not working at scale at all here, but I'm working at the correct proportions at least. I just want to get something to start from in terms of a block object. And I'm going to be making use of the Turbo Smooth modifier to add detail to the shapes I'm working on. And the process is about just defining the shape bit by bit. Some people might prefer to work in a sculpting tool, ZBrush, something like that. 3ds Max is a surface modeler primarily that I use, but it does have subdivision capabilities for more organic shapes. One of the other things I'm going to make sure to use or take advantage of is the symmetry option, so that you're only ever working on one side. And then I will start adding more detail to the shape. And then in the first instance, I'm just looking to get kind of rough head shape, round, blocky. Orc type head. Try and get rid of the obvious squareness. So what I'm trying to do is work with as few a number of control points as I can to keep it reasonably easy. We're not going for a high detail model, we're just needing to get something that looks like, at that tiny scale, a space orc. That's the idea. We're not doing something for high quality rendering or animation, we're just doing a pretty small end result, and most of the details aren't really going to carry through to the 3D print. And then once we start trying to add in things like, well, the obvious features on an orc, heavy brow, obvious eye socket, And the good stuff about doing this is you can go back and forth and change things, correct things, and essentially mess around with it until you like the result. And there are general rules in modelling like this. For example, all these faces that you see here, the individual polygons should all really be four-sided, so I can come back in here and start correcting some of the topology to get things as they should be. But for a job like this, it's not perhaps absolutely necessary. But I'll go back and forth over a model like this and try and get everything looking how I want it. And then orcs tend to have these really pronounced lower jaws and lower lips and things, so this is not like sculpting for a larger 28mm model even. We're down in the 6mm tall in terms of space for detail, so you can't really get too fussy about how things are given how small they're going to be when created, if at all, if they can be created at all. Some of this stuff might not work, and we'll find out. So I think I will persevere with this and see where I get to. Basically using the same techniques that you see there. Okay, after some messing around and going back and forth, I think I've got general head shape that I'm after for an orc. The teeth, they're just a separate element, just added in. I don't need to stitch that into the mesh, it's unnecessary. And then with the symmetry on and the smoothing, overall that will work as a kind of general form. So it just takes a bit of back and forth, just looking at the result and editing the topology, deleting lines, adding lines, and adjusting the suit. Important feature would be the ear, in fact, probably just there. Extrude out something to start an ear shape with. Obviously it needs to be slimmer as it comes out. So there's that to edit. I mean that won't look right quite yet, but that's the general idea. It's going to need quite a bit of fixing. I think that's what a large part of the sculpting process is. It's maybe just making a mess and then tidying up. Then of course the kind of main feature that I was after is the mohawk on top of the head. So I think selecting an area like that would be enough. And then starting to extrude out a shape from there. I'm going above my 6mm height guide, but that's okay. This is a kind of an additional feature. And then again, just adjusting that to suit what I'm looking to create. kind of overhanging wide mohawk. Remembering that down at the tiny scale that these things will be printed at, these features will tend to disappear a bit. Yeah, so it's too wide at the base of that. So that will need some more edges to try and define that shape better. Okay, so that's the head shape done. Something for the ears there, something for the mohawk. And then with the smoothing applied. Again, a lot of this will just disappear into nothingness when printed, but it doesn't need to be more detailed because there'd be no point. There's probably more than enough detail in that. I guess I'm trying to remember that to sculpt one of those original 6mm epic scale miniatures, that they have to do it, people who do that are doing it at the size that they will be. In real life they can't use CAD to zoom in and make things more complicated, so got to kind of bear that in mind. The next part I would probably go for would be something for the torso. Again, just start with another box object for that, and then just start adjusting points to suit, adding in detail where needed, and really it's just a repetition of what I did with the head. I only need half because I'm going to use symmetry, and then we can use turbo smooth to round that shape off. I don't mind them being a bit bigger, sort of heavier set. I think that suits them. Okay, that's some colour applied just to help define what's happening. The body, the upper torso there, you can see roughly the idea based on the boxy shape for a start. Kind of high shoulders, head low down, I think is the right sort of look. Just placing in a very simple gun object. Again, this is going to be tiny. There's no point in adding much detail to that at all. And then next would be creating some arms. And again, I'm just going to start with a box object for that, which tends to be enough. And I don't mind if these things all intersect with each other. I don't need them to all be separate and clean that way. They can overlap. And it's just about extruding out shapes from that starting point. Starting to form a bit of an arm. You can see there the left arm looks pretty much a mess, but when smoothed out, yeah, that would roughly work. Again, no definition needed in things like fingers, because it's unlikely that any of that stuff's going to successfully print anyway. I just need it to vaguely resemble an arm and a hand, and then onto the legs. Okay, overall, I think that's the character done. I'll maybe add a few more details, some things on the back. Probably needs one of those orc plates on the back. So that there's somewhere to add a bit of colour. So after a bit more modelling work, I've added some more details to the back of the orc. Hand weapon, some storage, a tabard type thing. I think what would be interesting is to find out how well this prints, if at all, when you're 3D printing. Certainly the resin bath stuff. I guess you've got to remember that the miniature appears kind of from an upside down position in multiple layers, and yeah, there may be arguments for setting this at an angle when you go to slice before printing, but nonetheless what I would have to look out for now is any unsupported parts of the model which are going to need to be adjusted. So as this emerges out of the resin bath, I suppose what you can start looking out for are parts which would stand out as being islands. So just to do a very rough simulation of this emerging from the resin, what you've got to look out for are any parts which are floating, disconnected from previously cured part of the model. So let's see if we notice anything here. I suppose around at the arm there's a hint of bits appearing that could be adjusted in 3D before going to print. I think in general that might be okay. Never really know until you try. But yeah, I think for now I'll leave the video there. I may do some adjustments to this and see what happens next. Might be nice to maybe even add another miniature for a bit more variety on the stands, but I'll see how much time I've got to put into this. And let me know if you've seen anything else online that can be purchased as a Snakebite Ork for epic scale. I'd always be interested in taking a look at that. Or if you're experienced in 3D printing with resin, a model like this at 6mm, let me know if you think that this is something that is likely to successfully print. In any case, thanks very much for watching the video.